When an arrogant HOA president thinks property lines are just suggestions, they usually end up crying to the board. But when Arthur Vance, the neighborhood tyrant, tore down my heavy warning signs, ignored the thick steel wire, and stepped right onto my restricted land boundary, he had no idea he was walking straight into a trap that would cost him his title, his dignity, and his pride. Hit that subscribe button right now, because watching an insufferable HOA dictator get completely humbled by his own deliberate trespass is the ultimate revenge story you won't want to miss. My name is Caleb. I own a secluded 5-acre plot, directly bordering the hyper-manicured, sterile suburban nightmare known as Pinecrest Estates. For years, Arthur, a man who wore pastel sweaters like corporate armor and treated the neighborhood like his personal fiefdom, complained about my land. He hated my natural tree lines, my rustic workshop, and above all, the fact that my property cut right into his pristine view. The problem for Arthur was that my land wasn't just a regular backyard. Due to old historical zoning and a high-voltage electrical easement running through the rear boundary, a specific section of my perimeter was legally designated as a restricted utility buffer zone. I had nailed heavy metal warning signs, blazing in bright neon yellow and red, every 10 feet along the heavy galvanized fence. Danger, restricted utility zone, high voltage and automated security, no trespassing. But Arthur didn't care about rules that didn't stroke his ego. One afternoon, while hosting an elite neighborhood block party, his prize-winning dog slipped past the fence line. Instead of calling me or using the proper channels, Arthur decided he was above my warnings. He marched right up to my property line, ripped a heavy "Do Not Enter" sign straight off the post, and unlatched the private gate. He took 3 steps onto the property, turned around, and smiled smugly at his cheering neighbors. Right before the heavy automated perimeter gate slammed shut behind him with a loud, terrifying mechanical click. The heavy click of the security gate wasn't just a physical lock. It was the sound of a trap snapping shut. Arthur's smug smile vanished instantly. He grabbed the thick steel bars of the gate, shook them with all his might, and yelled out, "Caleb, open this ridiculous contraption right now. Do you have any idea who you are dealing with?" Across the lawn, his flock of suburban followers stopped sipping their Chardonnay. The sudden silence was deafening. Arthur was used to bullying everyone into submission with threats of HOA fines and lien letters. But here, trapped behind cold steel, he looked entirely ridiculous. I stepped out from my workshop, wiping a bit of sawdust from my hands, holding a steaming mug of black coffee. I didn't rush. I took a slow sip, letting him sweat under the glaring afternoon sun. "Can I help you, Arthur?" I asked, my voice completely deadpan. "You seem to have missed several very large, very clear neon signs warning you not to cross this exact line." Arthur's face turned a brilliant shade of crimson. "Your stupid metal decorations mean nothing to the Pinecrest Estates board. I am the president. I demand you release me this second, or I will have the county sheriff tow your entire property into the dirt." He thought shouting would fix it. He thought his title gave him immunity. But Arthur made a fatal miscalculation. He didn't just step onto my private 5-acre plot. By ripping down that warning sign and forcing the automated latch, he triggered a regional high-voltage utility easement protocol. And right at that exact moment, a massive county utility truck turned the corner, its emergency amber lights flashing furiously. The county truck wasn't a random coincidence. It was a heavy-duty vehicle from the Regional Power and Water Authority, directly linked to the smart sensors embedded in my boundary posts. The moment Arthur ripped down that sign and forced the gate, an automated trespass alert had pinged the district control center. A burly utility inspector named Cole stepped out of the truck, wearing a high-visibility vest and a stern, no-nonsense expression. He walked straight past Arthur's panicked supporters and stopped right by the breached fence line. Arthur's eyes lit up with desperate hope. He thought he could bully a county worker, just like he bullied everyone else. "Thank goodness you're here, officer. Utility man. Whatever," Arthur shouted, slamming his palms against the steel bars. "This unhinged resident has illegally detained me. Write him a citation immediately and tear down this ridiculous fence." Inspector Cole didn't even blink. He looked at Arthur, then looked down at the neon yellow warning sign Arthur had ripped off the post and thrown onto the dirt. Then, Cole pulled out a digital tablet, tapped a few screens, and checked the official county land registry map. "Mr. Arthur Vance, correct?" Cole asked, his voice echoing cleanly across the quiet street. "President of Pinecrest Estates?" "Yes." "Now let me out of here before I have your department defunded," Arthur shrieked, his face turning an ugly shade of purple. Cole slowly closed his tablet, shook his head, and pulled a heavy-duty yellow citation booklet from his utility pocket. "Well, Mr. Vance, you aren't just trespassing on private land. By tearing down a municipal utility warning marker and forcing an active easement gate, you've just violated federal right-of-way codes." The neighborhood crowd went dead silent. Arthur's jaw dropped so fast, it looked like it might dislocate. "Federal right-of-way codes," Arthur stammered, his arrogant posture collapsing like a cheap tent. "That's absurd. This fence is an eyesore, and your little warning signs violate our community aesthetic bylaws." Inspector Cole didn't even crack a smile. He clicked his pen and began aggressively writing on the yellow carbon paper. "Mr. Vance, community aesthetic bylaws do not supersede state utility protections. Tampering with an active high-voltage easement marker carries a federal fine of up to $5,000, plus mandatory civil restitution for asset disruption." A collective gasp rippled through the gathered HOA crowd. $5,000? For a quick little power trip? Arthur's face drained of all color. "You can't do this. Do you know who I am? I run this neighborhood. And I run the regional power grid infrastructure," Cole replied smoothly, tearing the top yellow sheet off the pad. He walked right up to the steel bars, sliding the official citation directly through the gap into Arthur's trembling hands. "Sign here, or I double the fine and call the county sheriff to haul you downtown." Defeated, humiliated, and shaking with rage, Arthur grabbed the pen and scribbled his name. But his nightmare wasn't over yet. Cole turned back toward me, tipping his hat. "As for you, Mr. Vance, technically, he breached an automated secure perimeter on private state hybrid land. Do you wish to press formal misdemeanor trespassing charges?" The entire street held its breath. Arthur stared at me through the bars, his eyes wide with sheer panic, realizing too late that he had completely miscalculated who held the power. I slowly pulled out my phone, unlocked the screen, and smiled. I didn't want to completely ruin his life. I just wanted my peace back once and for all. Arthur stared at me through the steel bars, his arrogant expression entirely replaced by absolute, whimpering dread. He knew that if I added criminal trespassing to the federal utility citation, he would face jail time, immediate removal from the HOA, and total public disgrace. "Caleb, please," Arthur whispered, his voice cracking, as his neighbors watched in stunned silence. "Don't press charges. I'll do whatever you want. Just tell this inspector to forget the trespass." I slipped my phone back into my pocket and walked slowly toward the gate. I unlocked the automated mechanism with a tap on my control pad, and the heavy steel bars slowly swung open. Arthur stumbled backward onto the grass, panting and sweating. "I won't press criminal charges, Arthur," I said calmly, looking him dead in the eye. "On two conditions. First, you resign as HOA president effective immediately. Second, you sign a legally binding easement waiver acknowledging my property boundaries, permanently revoking any future HOA interference." Arthur looked at the citation in his hand, then looked at his horrified neighbors who had just watched their fearless leader completely crumble. He didn't have a choice. He grabbed a pen from Inspector Cole and frantically signed the waiver right there on the hood of the utility truck. By the end of the week, Arthur had packed his bags and put his house up for sale. The new HOA president actually reached out to apologize, bringing a basket of housewarming goods and promising zero interference. Today, my 5 acres remain as quiet and peaceful as the day I bought them. The heavy warning signs still stand tall, but they don't even need to speak anymore, because everyone in Pinecrest Estates learned the hard way what happens when you cross the boundary line.